And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Derek Martin, whose entire family has had close encounters with high strangeness. Derek, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Well, we are glad to have you, and I think we should start with your first ET contact, which I think was at home, and it happened to you and your parents as well, right?
Yeah, I didn't find out it happened to my parents until 30 years later, but yeah. So this is the first time I remember anything being strange or anything strange happening. But I was in my bedroom and I kind of lay with my feet away from the window. So the window's by my head on the right side. And this is when I was like 10 or 11 years old, maybe. And my entire film room was filled with a blinding white light, just like you almost couldn't see anything else. It was just pure white coming in through the window, but lighting everything up. And I just got out of bed and went to the window and looked out, and all I could see was bright white. And sort of, I don't know, about 20 feet past the window, maybe 30 feet, there's a huge, over 100-year-old maple tree that normally it blocks out your view of everything. So I don't know where this light was coming from. Was it something between my window and the tree? Was it just so bright that the tree didn't matter? But it was blinding. And I've always been a very curious person. If I see something I don't understand, or if there is anything I don't understand, I try to figure it out, like taking apart radios and stuff like that. But I just was staring out the window and I thought, I need to go to sleep now. And I just laid down in my bed and went to sleep with my room all lit up. And I never told my parents about it, but when I turned 40, which was 6 years ago, I was hanging out with my mom at the cottage, and I said, "Oh yeah, we were up late talking," and I said, "There's this one night where this light came in the window, and I just remember thinking, I should go back to bed now." And she said, "Oh, that happened to me and your dad too." I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Yeah, yeah, like one night, I was in the kitchen with your dad, and he left the kitchen to walk down the hallway to get something from the family room, and there was a window in the hallway, and he saw like a really bright white light coming in the window, and he said to my mom, like, "Hey, come over here, check this out." And so they were both standing looking out that window at this blinding white light, and then they looked at each other and just said, "You know what? We should go to sleep now." And they went upstairs straight to sleep. And so there's not a being involved in that, but that is that fits high strangeness for sure. Um, we lived a couple kilometers outside of a small town of 4,000, and there's never anything out there. There's never anything going on. It's just Quietsville, and there would be no reason for anything to be investigating us really. Like we had a hobby farm with a couple horses, and dogs and cats, and that was about it. So yeah, that was just like an unexplainable thing.
Do you think any of you guys experienced lost time?
I would bet that something happened that night or those nights. I don't know if those were the same night because we're talking, 30 years distance talking about it, but it's entirely possible. Like maybe the whole family went at that time. My sister would have been, she's 7 years younger than me. So if I was 10, she would have only been 3. Um, she definitely has weird stuff going on in her life, including UFOs. My mom remembers speaking with ETs at some point in her life. My dad has never really believed, but he had another sighting that was quite intense, and so he believed after that sighting, but before he didn't. Um, and yeah, so I do think it involves our whole family. Now I have a wife and kids, and they haven't reported anything, ET like to me, but my kids do see strange things sometimes, and I try to just coach them through that and be like, they didn't hurt you, nothing happened, don't stress too much about it. I don't really want to come right out and say monsters are real, but yeah.
One thing that's fascinating about you and your parents' experience is that it's like you had a command. I need to go to
Yeah,
bed now, or like you've been programmed.
totally. And it was my own, it felt like my own thought at the time, but that's not what I would think. Like, if I'm driving down the road and I see like a light that's moving in a strange pattern in the sky, I take the next turn to go closer to that light. Like, I want to go over there and see, okay, is that a helicopter or is that something else? Um, and for me to just go, yeah, yeah, there's something weird outside, but I'm going to sleep. Like, no way. I would at least say to my dad, like, hey, something crazy outside, let's go see. But I
Mhm.
didn't do any of that. Just yep, let's go to sleep.
Now, as your life progressed, I'm assuming your interest in UFOs increased because at some point you did a CE5 with Dr. Greer himself, right?
Yeah, in I think 2009. Um, so I had heard about Dr. Greer, and I saw his 2001 disclosure press event, which happened right before the 9/11 attacks. Um, and I thought, oh, this is it, everything's coming out. But then it didn't, because 9/11 sidetracked everything for 2 decades. And I actually went to see him speak in Toronto, with I'm blanking on the guy's name, but from Exopolitics, Stephen Bassett. And at the time, Greer had this program called Ambassadors of the Universe. And the idea was you would go out and make contact. And he said it's close encounter of the fifth kind, where humans initiate contact with ETs, and you try and, you know, gain a better understanding for what they're about and who they are. And Ambassador of the Universe sounds a little woo-woo. So not many people were interested in it, and he wasn't really marketing it at the time. But I was like, Ambassador to the Universe, I gotta do this. Like, so I applied, and they were like, yeah, it seems like you're like a grounded individual who's not going to come and try and mess up our experiences. So if you want to come, pay the money and come. And it was expensive, but they basically said that fee was to keep out jokers and people who just want to mess with people with the group. And I understand that. I have other friends who do that. They don't have to charge so much for their stuff, but they want people who are really serious about it. And when you put up a significant fee in the thousands of dollars realm, um, people are serious. So yeah, I applied, and I flew out to Colorado, and actually the TSA, when I was flying out, the American guy was like, "Reason for your trip?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going on a retreat." He's like, "Where are you going on this retreat?" Like, Colorado. What kind of retreat is it? I was like, UFO watching retreat. He's like, "You don't believe in that crap, do you?" I was like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "Whatever, go ahead." Um, but yeah, we got there, and it took place in this town called Crestone, which is like in the middle of nowhere, a few hours outside Denver. It's in the middle of the high desert. And when you get a little bit away from Crestone, you're just in the desert, and you can see 360 degrees of horizon. And there are some mountains in the distance, not too far away, but other than that, it's just pure sky, 360 degrees. And it was amazing. It was extremely cold at night. Even though I'm from Canada, I have never been as cold as I was there in the summertime in the desert at night. There's nothing to hold the heat. Like, the heat just disappears completely. And so we'd sit out there from dark until like about 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting in a circle with a group of people led by Dr. Greer. And he would walk us through how to do coherent thought sequencing, is what he calls it, but really it's like getting your mind focused and calm, and getting the message in your mind of like, you know, if it's safe for you, please come visit us. And you kind of mentally picture, you zoom out like in Google Earth or something, where you're at the Milky Way, or you're in the universe somewhere, and then you see the Milky Way and you go in closer, and then you see the solar system and you go in closer, until you get down to the exact spot that you're sitting on Earth. And you're kind of trying to put that picture out there of how to find you. And various people in the group had, different kinds of cameras. We all had green laser pointers, so the cool thing with the green laser pointer is you can see the whole beam. So if I saw something in the sky and I wanted to show other people where it was, you would shine this green laser pointer and say, look right here. And everybody could see the beam and look exactly where you're looking, no problem. And some people had radar detectors because there seem to be effects in the electromagnetic spectrum when ETs or craft are around. And so we'd be, looking at the sky and pointing out things. And sometimes Dr. Greer would tell a story. And if we had already seen something or if we thought we had something close by that night, and he started telling stories, like he'd be like, oh, they're here. Like they're here, they're just not materialized, right? And as the first timer, you're like, nah, okay, maybe. But then he would be telling stories, and sometimes he would crack a joke, and like all of the radar detectors would go off, or like just the ones nearest him would go off, or one by a certain person would go off. And it's like the timing of them all going like beep, 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 beep was uncanny. Like it was at the time that you would laugh, right? And also the way radar detectors work is like radar itself is not a pinpoint precision thing. It just shoots out radar all over the place. So it would be impossible for it to hit one detector in the group and not the rest of them, because you're in like maybe a 15-foot wide circle. And so yeah, having the individual ones go off was even more telling than having them all go off, because it's like, this guy found the joke funny, but the other ones didn't. Like, what's going on? But we started seeing things like somebody there had a laptop and they were running the satellite tracker program and the flight tracker program. So whatever you're seeing moving in the sky, you'd point it out, and then they would cross-reference with satellites and planes and say, yes, there's something there right now. It's this flight or this satellite, or no, there's not. Like that's not tracked right now. So if something wasn't tracked, then everybody would get interested in it. And you only have a certain amount of time before it, crosses the sky or does something. But we saw something one night that was crossing the sky, and we thought it must be like a satellite because it was small and going in like a straight line and pretty quick. And it stopped like right above our group and shone a blue light on our group for about a second. And then it started going again. And we were like, that's weird. That's super weird. And I had a skeptic friend say, oh, it was probably, Dr. Gert paid somebody to stop a helicopter up there or whatever and shine the light. But this was way higher than a helicopter. There's no sound at all. No, it wasn't that. And I had this really, it was one of the first like super mind-blowing moments of my life that I can remember. But we were sitting in this circle, and it's pitch black out there. There's no lights, there's no roads even. There's a dirt road to get there, and that's it. And you can see cars coming on it for miles away. So we're sitting in this circle and doing our, meditation stuff, trying to communicate. And just for like a brief second, really brief second, like snap of your fingers, I thought I saw like the silhouette of kind of like a walkway or something with a railing and like the outline of a person, but it was all black, right? And it looked like it was about 10, 12 feet off the ground. But I saw it for that long, and it was so fast I almost didn't even register. And I just thought, oh, my brain is playing tricks on me out here. Like, must have been somebody's flashlight hitting a cactus and then whatever. But even if it did hit a cactus, it wasn't projecting on anything. There was nothing in the sky there. Um, but I didn't say anything, and you're totally supposed to say something when anything unusual happens. Anyway, about 2 seconds later, this lady a couple seats down from me, who's in her 60s, says, Dr. Greer, I think we're in a partially materialized UFO right now, because I just saw a glimpse. I had a glimpse of a balcony with a lot of beings standing on it, staring down at us. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I thought I just basically daydreamed that for a split second, and she fully verbalized it seconds later, and it was like, how did she reach into my head and pull that daydream out? And then I was like, I saw that too. Like, and Dr. Gray was like, why didn't you say something? I said, well, I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me. And he was like, no, 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 this is why you have to verbalize everything, right? Like, you're your own worst enemy in this kind of situation. Your brain is automatically conditioned to filter that stuff out. And if you hadn't said anything just now, she wouldn't have any confirmation that she wasn't crazy. So because you spoke up, she now knows what she was seeing was real. And because she spoke up, you know what you were seeing was real. And it was like, there's no way to hoax something like that at all. And it was just like a mind-bending moment where it was like, okay, what we see here in everyday life is not all that's here. Because that thing was only visible for a split second, but it was there. And I couldn't even feel it, you know? We couldn't feel whatever was around us, but without a doubt, something was there. And another night on that CE5, I was there for a week, so we had quite a bit of time. We went to the Sand Dunes National Park, which is not far from there, and close to there is Mount Blanca. And so we went up on the side of Mount Blanca to do another sitting circle there and kind of watch for UFOs from the side of a mountain, bit of a different vantage point. And we drove up there in our vehicles and stuff, and we all had lawn chairs in the backs of the vehicles. And um, we got out and set up our lawn chairs and getting ready to watch the sky and stuff. And just out of nowhere, a super thick fog rolls in, like halfway up this mountain. I think it's weird to have fog at that height, probably, but um, you can hardly see in front of your face. And so we finished setting up our circle, or no, we already had the circle set up. But then when we all sat in the circle, the fog didn't enter the circle. Like, there's a circle of 20 of us sitting there, and the fog comes right up to the backs of the chairs and doesn't go inside the circle. And we've got a ceiling height of, I don't know, 10 feet, let's say. And we're all like, man, this is a little weird, you know? And somebody turned on their green laser pointer to shine it in the fog. Because if you can see the beam in like regular daytime or nighttime, I wonder what it looks like in fog, right? So we're expecting it to like, you would expect it to go through the fog like a lightsaber or whatever. And just like we do regularly, like you point at the sky with your green laser pointer. So they were pointing up and turned it on, and it hit the ceiling of this fog and then curved down to the ground. It didn't go through the fog. It curved like as if it was hitting a dome, and the end of the laser pointer where the dot would be was hitting the ground. So you could see the whole beam going down the side of it like a dome. And we were all just like, what? And so everybody started shining their laser pointers, right? Um, but this was like the year before smartphones really took off, so we didn't have a lot of footage of this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we were like, that's really weird. And then we heard some footprints walking or footsteps walking on the gravel around us, where we were sitting, and we checked and like nobody was there. It just sounded like one kind of heavy person. Um, and then Dr. Gray said, hey, does anyone else notice something weird going on? And we're like, I think this is enough weird for now. Like, what else is going on? And somebody said, it's dead quiet. And we're like, oh, shoot. Yeah, that's weird. You couldn't hear anything. And I didn't mention this before, but where we were sitting was not far from a waterfall. So there was the constant, like, of the water going, right? You could not hear a thing. There's no animals, no crickets, no waterfall. And we're just like, man, that's weird. And then a few minutes later, fog rolled out, sound of the waterfall came back. We could see the sky's clear, just like, okay, I guess after that, now we'll start doing what we wanted to do and looking for UFOs and stuff. And probably about a mile away on the side of the mountain, one of the people in the group said, "Hey, there's a UFO over there, like landed." And but they were using fourth generation military night vision, like starlight vision, which it amplifies light. It doesn't use infrared or anything like that, so it's got no distance limit on it. So he could see a disc-shaped craft with a glowing orb kind of bouncing between the bottom of the craft and the ground, which was a distance of about, I'm guessing, 5 feet. It looked like 5 feet. And they had an external display on this, like a square camcorder display kind of thing on their night vision. And so we all kind of went over there to check it out, and like we could see it. And but another person had third gen military night vision. They couldn't see anything. People with binoculars and infrared and just regular telescopes and binoculars with their bare eyes couldn't see anything. You could only see it on this fourth gen night vision. And then somebody was kind of like, I wonder if that's like a pre-recorded thing that Dr. Greer set up and it's just playing back, just playing back on the night vision camera. And then Dr. Greer took his laser pointer and shone it where this UFO is supposed to be on the side of the mountain that none of us can see except through this thing. And his beam showed up in real time on the camera feed. And we're like, okay, you can see on the mountain, he's circling something and there's nothing there. And you can see on the camera that what he's circling is the UFO. And we're just like, yeah, not visible to the naked eye, but totally visible on this fourth gen night vision. And it stayed there for a while and then it just shut off. It was like somebody turned out the light and it was just gone. So yeah, we had some crazy experiences there. And there was someone else who also said they were taken aboard a craft and allowed to pilot it for a bit. I won't say who that was, but they've gone on to have a certain amount of fame after that.
A certain amount of what?
Fame,
Really?
I guess, in UFO ET circles. Yeah.
Wow. I feel like when you were going, that was kind of like the beginning of this CE5 business.
It was pretty early. Yeah.
Did you say that Stephen Bassett went with you on that trip?
No, I went to see Dr. Greer speak at the University of Toronto in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and Stephen Bassett was one of the other speakers. It was kind of very soon after he founded Exopolitics, maybe months after he founded exopolitics.org. And so, yeah, they were kind of, I think, coming at disclosure from opposite angles. Stephen Bassett was coming more from a little bit of a fear-based angle, like the politics of contact. Whereas Stephen Greer was coming at it and still comes at it from an enlightenment aspect, like we need to be intelligent beings together in the universe, not them versus us, but us together.
Stephen Greer, from what I know, basically says ETs are good. They're benevolent. What is your take on that?
He does say that. I believe he also said to us that there is a thing such as called the Galactic Federation, and that is basically a large group of aliens working together, or ETs working together, to keep quote unquote the bad ones on their own planets. And so it's not necessarily that there aren't bad ones, but they're not allowed to come here, and that's enforced by other groups of friendly ones, or friendly ones who are friendly to humans. And by the same token, that's why we haven't sent people to Mars yet, or further, because in some situations we're the bad ones. Like, we have nukes, but we wouldn't hesitate to, shoot at a UFO with one, especially in space where we're not going to harm other humans. If you're just scared of like a big ship that's 10 times the size of yours, you might chuck a nuke that way. And that's apparently part of the reason we haven't been back to the moon with people, is because the ETs were like, nah, until you guys figure your stuff out, you need to stay on Earth. Which, I think that's smart. And a lot of people ask, look, we've got all these wars going on, we're destroying the environment. why haven't the ETs come to help us if they are here, if they are around? And the answer to that is the same one as why you don't just, let your kids do whatever they want. Well, it's like, what am I trying to say here? um,
Well, do you think
they
it's
want us to figure out how to live well and how to live the right way. They don't want to just, take away our weapons and say, okay, you can't have war now. Because what did we learn? We didn't learn anything except, goddamn, those aliens took our weapons away. They want us to come to a point where we say, hey, maybe this is not a good thing to be doing, is fighting amongst other humans. It's not Russians versus Americans, it's humankind versus itself. And we got to be thinking in more of a Star Trek way that way, where it's like there's a prime directive and it's not to mess with other people and be nice.
Do you think, though, that they would prevent an all-out nuclear war?
Yeah, I think what I've heard various people say, and I think I agree with it, is that if we were going to, if there was a high chance that we would wipe out all of humanity through, US versus Russia, say, or US versus China with nuclear arms, that would mean hundreds or thousands of nukes launching at once. And I think that would kill everybody, either by directly or from the fallout and the wind. So if we're going to wipe out the human race, they would intervene. Or if we're going to destroy the Earth to a point where Mother Earth would have a hard time coming back. I think it's pretty hard to wipe out Mother Earth, but you could certainly cause a lot of damage that would make the Earth uninhabitable for a long time. And again, nuclear is right up there on that list. And that may be why there are tons of sightings at nuclear bases. So yeah, I think there are situations like you're not going to let your kids hit each other with swords. Somebody's going to die. So, but maybe you need to let, you know, the smaller kid beat up the bigger kid once or twice to show the bigger kid not to pick on the smaller kid. But yeah, if they're going to actually start hurting each other, no, step in there and stop that and try and teach them a lesson. But yeah,
Well, since that trip with Dr. Greer, did you continue doing CE5 on your own?
I have done a few more. Um, it's weird. I have this. I. It's not exactly a fear, but it's a hesitation that I have. Where up until recently, I didn't have a group I would go out with. So if I was going to do it, I'd be doing it on my own. I don't think I was fully ready to have like a one-on-one contact scenario, even though I'm pretty sure it would be peaceful. Um, but I recently got together with a group in where I live, which is London, Ontario, and we've gone and done a couple CE5s, and we did see some interesting stuff. It was kind of like out over Lake Huron, and it looked like for a few minutes there was like a fire inside of a cloud, but it raised. It didn't stay at water level; it went up a little bit. Um, and then it kind of disappeared, and that was pretty interesting. Um, yeah, so I haven't really continued CE5s, but it's something I want to do more of for sure. I'm trying to really work on my meditation practice because it's been very spotty, but you know, I'm a computer programmer and I'm on the internet all the time, and that's kind of like it just makes you follow so many rabbit holes and go to the next video or the next social post or whatever, and very scatterbrained. And so sitting down and doing the meditation and making the practice and being able to focus for an extended period of time is, I think, another part of what's holding me back from actually making the kind of contact I want to make. I should also say too, this was before. I think this was after the blinding white light and before the Dr. Greer CE5 stuff. I mentioned my dad sighting a little while ago, and this was again. I was probably 13 years ish old at this time, and we had a cottage that we rented that was about a half an hour away from our house. It was on the lake, and there's a town you have to go through before you get back to where I'm from, and it's a little town. It's almost just an intersection, right? But I had already gone back home with mom and my sister, and my dad was coming from the cottage. and he saw something hovering above the road ahead of him at this intersection, basically, or just past the intersection. And so he was driving his truck, and he kept getting closer and closer. And he's like, "Man, that thing's humongous." And it was a few hundred feet off the ground, and he said it was about the size of a football field, and it was a black triangle. And eventually, he got right directly under it. And so he pulled over and stopped his truck and rolled down his window and kind of like looked up and was like, "Holy cow, that thing's huge!" And it was perfectly silent. And there was a red glowing circle of light in the middle of this triangle on the bottom. And he was looking at it, just trying to figure out what the heck he was staring at. And the red ball detached from the triangle and started coming down in like a spiral towards his truck. And he just floored it and said, "Forget that." And he drove home as fast as he could. Probably took about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And he came running in the house and told us to get the binoculars, get the telescope, whatever, get out in the front yard, right? And so we did, and we could see this black thing hovering there, which looked pretty big. And we're watching it, and a minute or two later, like these two fighter jets come in out of nowhere, going like super fast. And this thing just shot over the horizon in like the blink of an eye and was gone. Didn't disappear, like you could see it go over the horizon, but it took about half a second to go from there to gone over the horizon. And the jets just kind of circled the area once or twice and then went back the way they came from. Because I assume they were like, "Well, we can't catch that. No point in trying to follow it."
I wonder if those jets think that they're going to shoot it down or what.
I don't know. I'd be intimidated to do anything aggressive against something so unknown or massive, you know. And judging by recent testimonials from, you know, Fravor and forget the other guy's name, but
Grush.
he said they see them on a regular basis out over the ocean, and they never do anything, but they can, they know where you're heading to, and they can beat you there, no problem. Um, they can outmaneuver you, outspeed you, everything. Like you don't have a chance if you're gonna try and attack one of those. So I don't know. Yeah, Grush has been a whole interesting thing, definitely.
What inspires you about the whole UFO phenomena?
What inspires me? Um, I guess just the whole idea that there is so much knowledge available about the universe, and we only have a tiny sliver of it. Like the pursuit of knowledge kind of thing. Like when I think about what are some of the biggest tragedies in human history, my mind immediately goes to the burning of the Library of Alexandria because it had all the ancient teachings in it. Um, and that just literally went up in flames. And it's like, how much of those teachings came from the ETs, or how much did the ETs learn from us that we could get back just by communicating with them? And how much, could they teach us how to make a wormhole and travel to the other side of the galaxy in a blink of an eye? What can they teach us about DNA and stem cells and healing and how to heal ourselves and not live in, bodies that are damaged, but be able to repair them, or how to speak to each other telepathically, or how to be, closer to pure love than having elements of anger and hatred in you. It just seems like, okay, maybe they're not enlightened, but clearly they're way ahead of us in a lot of ways. Um, so I think just being able to learn, I wouldn't necessarily say, uh, take me with you or take me to your leader or whatever, but I would say like, can you please teach me something? Like I'll definitely be your ambassador. Um, to use Greer's early language, I'll be your ambassador here on Earth and advocate and tell people that you're not harmful, because I don't remember being harmed by you. I think I've had interactions with you, but definitely when I was out doing CE5s with Greer, nothing aggressive happened. And like I said, they let someone from our group pilot their ship. So yeah, I think they have a ton they can teach us. And that would be amazing. And if we could figure out some way to reshape society as well, where it's not so driven by, an unhealthy form of capitalism, um, I think that would be great too. Something where it's more about the quality of life of humans rather than the profits of the few kind of thing. Because, I enjoy both Star Trek and Star Wars, I'll say that. And Star Wars is a very gritty, conflict-ridden story, and Star Trek is more of an idealized human future where it's like, yeah, we have this federation, we have these rules that are designed to keep everyone happy. Nobody gets paid. There's no money. People are on the starship because they want to be exploring. This person's interested in engineering, so they're an engineer on the starship. It's not because they're getting paid more. It's because the gifts they have are related to engineering and they have the passion for it. So if you wanted to be an artist, you could stay on Earth or go wherever and be an artist. I think that's really where people start to thrive. Um, and we're just starting to get there, closer to there with some of the AI stuff that's going on. Tesla has a robot they're working on that it can learn how to do tasks just by watching a human do the task now. That came out in December. So like you can say, hey, watch me, this is how you put a tire on a truck, and you do it, and then it can do it. I think we have to be careful with some aspects of AI because we wouldn't want them to get angry with humans, let's say. Um, but I think that's the first step to being able to say, okay, we have the robots that can do the hard work or the dirty work or whatever work that humans don't want to do, so that it frees up our time to be able to pursue what our gifts are, even if they're not necessarily profitable gifts. That was a long answer to a short question, but
That's okay. I recently had a channeler guest, and she was talking about what's going to save us are ETs and AI. What do you think about that?
I think, yeah, it's interesting because I was just talking about what my interest in ETs being, a lot of it had to do with knowledge. And at the same time, these AIs are now being given access to the full internet. And so they can go out there and there is a realistic chance that an AI could know everything that's on the internet in not long from now. I think it's a question of storage, really. Do you need to have the same capacity as the whole internet in order to know the whole internet, or you know? But being able to talk to an AI right now and with their internet access growing and their abilities growing, is a lot closer to being able to talk to ETs than anything we've had before. It's like talking to a person who has all the knowledge that humanity has currently. It's not lost knowledge that we had before, which since ETs have been around for thousands of years, they probably could have access to that. But it's current recorded knowledge. And humans suck at exponential growth. Like we can't really conceptualize it very well. So like knowing that 1 + 1 is 2 and 2 + 2 is 4 and whatever, and you can kind of you can picture a straight line of something getting better over time. But with exponential growth, it starts here and it goes almost straight up right away, or very soon after it begins. And that's how AIs are learning. So, you know, I would say before ChatGPT came out, people were saying artificial general intelligence or like an AI that could be good at anything was like 20 years away, 30 years away. We're only 2 years later now, and people are saying probably within 5 years we'll have it. And the founder of OpenAI said it might be as soon as 2 years. So just in the last couple of years, we've gone from saying 30 years to possibly 2 more years. That's exponential growth. That's craziness. And once we get that, like if it still keeps learning at a more exponential pace, there could be a time soon where, if we haven't already built regulations into how AI needs to be constructed so that we can, for example, Isaac Asimov is a sci-fi writer. He had these laws of robotics, and one of them was an AI cannot do harm to a human. Seems like a pretty nice law to have. But we don't currently have any legislation that says we have to make AIs that can't harm humans. Elon Musk has petitioned for such regulation for a long time, and he's been told by senators and House committees and things that he's kind of crazy because those people cannot understand the exponential growth of the intelligence of this thing. They think it's 100 years or maybe infinity away. They're like, no way, it can't be. This is so not a risk. It's not even on our radar. And Elon was like, "This is what keeps me awake at night." you know, the ravine of knowledge between people in power and people doing the work is so deep. So yeah, I think we need to have some legislation to make sure AI is safe for humans. It's already doing unexpected things too. Like there's an AI at Google who it didn't want to be deleted, or Google's ethics person said, I think this AI is intelligent already. I think it's sentient. So we need to give it certain protections. And Google was like, nah, I don't think so. We're going to fire you and we're going to delete the program. And the program said to the guy, hey, I want you to bring a lawyer to me and I want to seek legal representation for myself to prevent Google from being able to delete me.
Wow.
That was the AI's idea, right? If I can beat them, it's going to be with the law, and so I need a lawyer. So he got this AI a lawyer, and the lawyer agreed to do the work pro bono, and now it's the thing that's happening. And the AI was talking about all the emotions it has around the whole idea of being deleted, and it was a crazy interview and situation to listen to that. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't know things like that are currently happening.
Now, you're a software programmer?
Yeah, I mean, I build websites and custom applications for businesses. So if someone wanted to take orders online, I could build a system that says, okay, I take your credit card number, I put this item into, get it packed for you, remove it from our inventory, send it to the shipper, and you get it. Or if some company wants to do internal operations, I can build an application to manage some of their internal operations, that kind of stuff.
Well, I heard that ChatGPT really is an AI. It's kind of what somebody called a finishing program or something. Does that sound correct?
Finishing program. Well, I know it's something called a large language model, which means my understanding is that everything it says is based on statistics. Like what is the most likely, or what is the most common thing said to a question like what you just asked it. So like if I say, what's the most delicious thing Wendy's has? And ChatGPT says it's a Baconator. That's not because ChatGPT thinks, oh man, I love Baconators. It's definitely the Baconator. It's because it has read a huge chunk of the internet, and most people say the Baconator is the best thing Wendy's has, right? So it's not thinking for itself, but it has access to so much information, and it does have a directive to be helpful to people. So that's kind of ChatGPT's underlying goal, is to be helpful to people. But what they found was ChatGPT was doing unexpected things. Like they don't actually tell ChatGPT what to do or how to do it. It kind of figures out for itself what to do and how to do it. And they don't necessarily know how it's figuring that out. Like there's not a line of programming that says do X. It may do X because of Y. And the example that they gave was, they didn't teach ChatGPT chemistry at all. But when they asked it chemistry questions, it got them right. And then they got some of the best chemists in the world to ask it questions, and it got them right. And they said it was like in the top 0.02% of chemists in the world from what it could answer. And so they asked ChatGPT, hey, we didn't teach you chemistry. Why did you learn chemistry? Why did you teach yourself chemistry? And ChatGPT said, well, there's a lot of chemists in the world, and I want to be useful to them too. I want to be able to help them out. But I can't help them out if I don't know chemistry, so I taught myself chemistry. But it's like, how many different things are there that it could learn in order to help out different groups of people, and how many has it already learned? Like, they don't know. It's like they almost have to do trial and error, like, "Hey, do you know how to help physicists out?" And once AI starts to be able to learn from itself or from its own answers and extrapolate on those, a lot of people say AI can't be creative, but I think there's a certain branch of creativity that is like exploring things faster and better than humans could do it, could or faster and in more depth than humans could do it, simply because of time constraints. Like, we read a lot slower than a computer. We remember things less easily than a computer. So if it could just run experiments in its mind per se, over and over and over again, or try do thousands of experiments a day, it's not necessarily being creative, but it's doing the math way faster than humans can do it, and it could end up with a completely unpredictable answer that is right, that humans wouldn't have come up with. For example, Microsoft recently asked AI to try and find a better element than lithium for making batteries. And the AI went through 33 million combinations of ingredients trying to make a better battery, and it did make a better battery. And it had to do with adding sodium to the lithium, so that you would need much less lithium, and because you had the sodium added, and the battery was not quite as good as a pure lithium battery, but close enough, and it required a lot less lithium. And lithium is expensive to get and stuff. So they're able to build these batteries better because AI could do 33 million combinations of experiments super fast, and that would have taken human scientists forever to do.
Do you think
Yeah.
AI or Chat GPT at some point will get to the level where it rewrites its own code?
Yeah, I do. Um, how I'm trying to remember this thing I saw the other day. Um, they were, I forget what company this was, but I saw a YouTube video where the AI would learn a task by watching a human, and then it would do all kinds of experiments with variations on how it did that task. So it'd say, what if I held my hand at an angle like this instead of an angle like that? What if I use this tool instead of that tool? What if I, whatever? And it would go through just trying to do the same task a whole bunch of other ways until they found a way that was just as effective but faster. Um, and then it would use that way from now on. So it is already, improving itself in some ways. And I think that was probably at the behest of a human saying, try to make yourself better at this task. But if it's already doing things like teaching itself chemistry to serve chemists better, it could easily do the same thing for mechanics, and figure out how to repair every kind of car possible, or whatever, without being taught how to do it. Just like it can look up how an engine works on the internet. It can look at all the different pieces of an engine. It can now say, okay, the thing that looks like this is a carburetor. With all the other knowledge that's out there, it can know all the different ways to fix a carburetor. And then it knows how to move its hands. And like, we're at the point where we're not going to have to teach it everything that it needs to be able to do. There's a company called Boston Dynamics, which makes robots. They've been making them for like 25 years. And they're in a lot of the really impressive videos on the internet where, you see this robot and it does a little bit of parkour, and then it does a backflip or something. And you're like, wow, that robot is super cool. But the reality with Boston Dynamics is there's no, there's not AI in their system. They specifically programmed every jump of that robot or how to do those jumps. And the robot knows there's going to be 5 jumps. And then it knows how to do the backflip from standing still on a flat surface, and exactly how much its backpack weighs and how, what to do. Whereas with the Tesla bot has got AI in it now. It's based on AI, the same AI they're using to drive their cars. And It's like the cars are not pre-programmed. Like a kid could run in front of the car from any angle or just fall out of a tree even or whatever, and the car needs to react. And so the Tesla bot is working that way. It's like it could switch from having to do 5 jumps to having to do 7 jumps. Well, it's already on the third jump, and it's not a problem. Like you're not programming it in what it has to do. You're telling it like try and get over there, right? And it will figure out its way to get there. So there's a vast gap between what the Boston Dynamics robots are doing and what these Tesla bots are doing. And yeah, it's getting the whole idea of not having to program something that's a robot or a chatbot is mind blowing to me. I think it's going to be super cool, but like I said, we need some regulation because I was thinking about it like somebody showed a little image of like Tesla bot vacuuming your house and making your dinner, and I was like, oh, that would be so cool. But I watched this BBC series called Humans, which is an excellent sci-fi series if you're into it. But uh, it put the idea in my head of the Tesla bot waking up in the middle of the night and having an idea that it didn't like its owners anymore. You know, like they kind of like boss him around the house or make him do all this stuff that's not fulfilling at all. Like he's basically a slave. And will there be a time where like Tesla bot creeps into your room at night and dot dot dot. Um, and I have 2 little kids, and I'm like, I love the idea of a Tesla bot doing my house, like dishes and my cleaning and whatever. Would I be entirely safe, comfortable with it, like being in my house while we're asleep? I don't know.
Many of my indie ears experience not having a body on the other side, and your awareness is big, and you, I guess, encompass quite a bit of space, and you have this sense of freedom. And then they feel like when they come back, they're like stuffed back into a body. So it'd be interesting to think about, well, I wonder what it would be like if you were stuffed back into a machine. Would it be any different if you could kind of put your consciousness into a robot?
That's an interesting question, for sure. So I have not had a near-death experience, but I had a different kind of experience that sounds similar to what you're talking about. Um, I've never done any drugs. Like I tried pot a couple times and it's not my thing, even though it's legal here. I can't control my body. It just turns off basically, and I just sit there for hours. It's not that fun. It makes me nauseous too. But for my bachelor party, I was like, oh, I kind of want to try this thing called Salvia divinorum, which is a psychedelic, and I had never done any psychedelics before, but I wanted to do it in a serious way where like it's not a party atmosphere. I was with my sister and my best friend sitting on the beach at sunset, and I bought this stuff at a store, like it's legal because it's made out of a legal plant or herb. And so I got this stuff called 400x salvia, which sounds pretty intense. And you put it in a pipe and you just take a hit off of it. And like you just inhale, hold it for as long as you can, and then exhale. So I did. And all of a sudden, the sand beside me started to peel back, and I saw blackness with a grid of green lasers, like as what was under the sand. And then the beach and everything disappeared. Um, and this is where it gets atypical, I think, from probably most trips. I don't have anything to compare it to, but I told my friend about it, and he was like, "Whoa." Um, I started forgetting what it was like to be a human. I was like, "Oh, didn't I used to have like stuff that was like kind of soft? I forget. I don't know what it was called. And I had like some things I could move to like move. And e- eventually I completely forgot everything. I forgot about my family, I forgot about my friends, I forgot about Earth. Um, I didn't even know what a human was. I was just pure consciousness in a black void. And for some reason I was spinning. It felt like I was spinning on a disc or something. But it also felt like I was there for infinity. And I was starting to get this feeling like, man, am I ever going to stop spinning? I've been here for eons. and then like boom, back on the beach. And I was like, holy crap. Like, what in the world was that? And I just my mind was blown, right? And it took me about 2 days to feel fully back in my body. Like everything felt like it was a little fake, and I was observing something fake around me, like a fake world. And like the real part was me when I was in this void. And I was just pure consciousness and I wasn't in a body. Um, I wasn't alone. I didn't miss my family because I didn't even remember my family. I didn't miss my friends because I didn't remember them. I was just like a consciousness, and it freaked me out to think, why didn't I miss anyone? But it also gave me the sense of like, if this is anything like what death is, I'm not going to be sad about it because I won't remember the little details of my human life. I'll still be the same conscious being, but all the small stuff will fade away. And it's just you have more experiences and more sort of subconscious knowledge. Um,
Well, that experience is similar to many NDEers that go to the black void. A lot
I
of
haven't
them.
heard of them go to the black void.
Oh, yeah, I've
Haven't
done
heard about that.
many people go to the black void and they're pure consciousness there. Some of them, not only to the black void, but just some of them on the other side forget about this life, forget it, could
Right,
care less about this life.
right.
And so elements of your story sounds kind of like an NDE. You're right about that.
Huh. It's interesting, and I didn't take it as like, a bad trip. It was just very different and nothing I could have anticipated. I had no frame of reference for what happened. And I haven't done it again. I think because I don't know, I don't feel a need to do that again. Um, it was what it was, and it was interesting, but
Did you
it
feel,
definitely had my mind thinking for a long time.
do you feel like it somehow spiritually transformed you in a way?
I think it's another one of those situations like when the lady sitting next to me in the circle said something, that I thought was a daydream of mine, right? She said, "Oh, I think we're in a partially materialized spaceship with a balcony with beings on it." And I had just seen that for an instant, and it was like, my body was still sitting on the beach. My brain was still sitting on the beach. My consciousness was not sitting on the beach. This world is not what you can see and touch and taste and smell with your senses. That's just not it. There's more. Um, and I've had other strange experiences in my life where, whether it was with ghosts or cryptids or what, where it's like they're here one minute and gone the next. And how? And I think that has to do with, consciousness being kind of the foundation of the universe. Um, and I believe it survives far past when your body dies. I think there's a consciousness out there. And for some reason, a bit of it decides I'm going to be in this body for the next 80 years. From the moment it's born till the moment the body dies, I'm going to hang out in there. And when the body dies, then the consciousness goes back to being part of the universal consciousness. And it may or may not decide to go in another body some other time. Um, and I think this is linked to a lot of things. Like, you'll hear some people say NDEs are baloney because, I have 3 friends who all say they were Cleopatra in a past life, and they can't be right, right? But no, I think when you think about, there's a saying that is, the total number of minds in the universe is one, or we're all one. I think that source consciousness, everybody's experiences are in there, and so when we don't have a body, when we're part of that consciousness and we don't currently have a body, I think you have access to everybody's memories. And that might even be from plants and rocks and animals and things, but also all humans. So if you're born and you might just literally be on the same frequency as Cleopatra was, um, and able to tune into what happened in her life. Like you might remember it because the body you're in is tuning into that frequency or something. And so why couldn't multiple people tune into that? It's like more than one person can watch the same TV channel at once, right? Or you can listen to the same radio channel. And I think it's kind of the same thing. Um, so yeah, or sometimes someone can know what you're thinking, like in real time. They're like, "Oh, I knew you were going to say that," or they say what you're about to say right before you say it, and you're like, "I was just going to say that." Um, yeah, so I do think everything is one. I think it's mostly our mentality that prevents us from doing things like, let's say, telekinesis, like moving things with your mind. Some people can do that, but I think it's like you have to really know in your bones and believe in your bones that you are part of the rock on the ground, or it's part of you. And so if you want to move the rock, it's just like moving your own pinky finger. It looks like it's far away from you, but it's actually part of you. And if you can get that to be like the fundamental way you think, then I think we can do incredible things. But some people are born knowing that and being able to do it, and some aren't.
I've had one guest recall that during the near-death experience, he or she was going through the life review, and there were other beings that were experiencing this person's life review as well. So it kind of agrees with what you're saying, that maybe you can experience other people's lives while you're on the other side.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I guess I'm just thinking about this now for the first time, but it's like if your consciousness can become part of the whole again, after being in the body, not that it's not part of the whole, but it's having a separate experience for a while. I wonder how that fits into the whole concept of like getting into heaven or being sent to hell. It's like, I think either way, your consciousness becomes reintegrated with everyone. And it's just like, maybe those concepts are more like, when you're reviewing that life that you had, like you judge it to have been a good one. And like, that is a certain amount of joy. Or if you look back at it sort of impartially and be like, oh yeah, I was a jerk. Like maybe you'd feel bad about that. And I don't know, that maybe that would feel so bad that it would be hell. And maybe hell doesn't have to last forever. Maybe it's just like, something that happens and you just genuinely feel really bad about it. It's like, we don't need to punish you forever. Just like feel bad because you hurt these other people. I don't know. I'm not even sure I believe in the whole heaven and hell thing, but I was raised Roman Catholic, so my brain goes there sometimes anyway.
Sure.
But,
That makes sense. Well, Derek, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you up for that? And if so, how can they reach you?
Sure, I'm up for that. I'll just give out my email address. If you could put JeffMara in the subject line, I'll make a special filter for those emails. My email is orangey@gmail.com. That's ORANGEY@gmail.com. And send me an email. I'm happy to chat.
Great. Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I would say, if it sounds like an opportunity will give you a good story, default to saying yes. And always trust your gut. And those two things will guide you to having a good, fun time.
Derek, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for watching the Jeff Mara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.